Hey guys, it's TheFrXion here, Tiger Tank 12, how many call me, I don't really care. Welcome back to World of Tanks, where we're today reviewing the VK3002D. And beforehand, I am going to announce that this tank is one of my favorite German medium tanks in the game. It has been for a very long time. I just don't really play it often, at least I don't make a lot of videos on it, but it's a tank that I really did enjoy before it was introduced, or before it was made into a HD model, but I haven't played it in a while yet, so yeah, it's been a really nice refresh of getting back into this tank because it's a very fun vehicle. So I might be a bit biased when I review this vehicle because it really fits my playstyle. This is an old school medium tank in the game. This is an old school World of Tanks tank. And when I mean old school, you'll see that it doesn't really have any kind of pen. We're gonna get there in a second, but first we're gonna take a look at the stock variant of the tank. I'm gonna tell you guys if the stock variant is bad or if it's good, but generally speaking, I think that the stock variant, at least for the VK3002M and the D version, I think they're still passable, they're still decent, because you have the L70 gun, which is the same on the VK, it's the top gun on that thing, on the 3002. You have the second best engine from that tank, and the only upgrades that you have to do is the tracks, you have to upgrade the gun and the turret. Now the stock turret isn't the best, but it's also not horrendous. You only have 370 meter space view range on that one. But what I would do first, because what you have to do, you'll have to first get the tracks upgraded. Then I would go for the turret and the new gun. And in the end, I would get the MB507 engine, because that's an additional 100 horsepower, which is really nice to have. Other than that, you should have the FUG-12, you should have the Maybach HL230 TRM P30, and you should have the L70. Now also you should have the 10.5 centimeter gun. Probably if you've played some German tanks prior, you already have that gun. If not, you probably have to get to that in the end. Now the big question is, would you run the 75mm gun or the 88mm gun in this tank? And my answer would be, personally for me, it would be the 88mm gun. Why would you want to have that? Because you have better average alpha damage, you have not better pen per se, you have less pen actually on the AP shell, but just the alpha damage makes a big difference. And I'd say the gun handling on this tank is actually quite decent. You have a very high rate of fire, you have a very short reload time because of that high rate of fire. The gun traverse is great, as you can see here, because I also put on the improved rotation mechanism, which you don't really have to have on this vehicle, but I still just put it over from the VK. But we'll get to the equipment afterwards. Then you have 8 degrees of gun depression, which is a bit lacking, to be fair. I feel that 8 degrees no longer is the best. You know, 9-10 degrees would be really awesome, but 8 degrees is the norm now, and I'd say you're going to have situations where it's not going to be enough, but it's still going to be better than a lot of other tanks with only 6, 7, 5 degrees of gun depression, so I'm not going to complain too much. 20 degrees of elevation, that's decent. The aim time is good, the dispersion is good, and both of these I have upgraded a bit with the field modifications, and I'll show you that in a second. Yeah, you can see the DPM is really nice for a tier 7 medium tank of this stature. It has 1250 HP with the upgraded turret, 80 millimeters of frontal hull armor, 45 on the rear, on the side, 50 at the rear. It's the same chassis as the predecessor to this vehicle, which used to be the tank that you had before it, but it no longer is in the tech tree. It's the VK3001D, as you can see right there. The turret, on the other hand, it's a turret that you might remember. This is almost the same turret as the Panzer IV, but I think it has a bit more armor, or it's the same turret as the Panther II. It has, yeah, it's very boxy, 120 at the front, 60 at the side, 60 at the rear. At tier 7, this is going to work out fine most of the time, but since it's so flat, it's very easy to penetrate. And at tier 8 and 9, everyone just will be shooting right through that. But the hull armor is actually very nicely angled, and I've had a lot of bounces. And the funniest thing is that the penetration of this 88 millimeter gun is that bad that I cannot penetrate another VK3002B from the front with this gun. Now, the pen is probably going to be the biggest downside to this vehicle, because other than that, the survivability for a medium tank is, in my opinion, great. The mobility is amazing. This is incredible. You have specific power to weight ratio of 20.57 horsepower per ton. That is amazing. You have 60 kilometers per hour top speed, 20 kilometers per hour reverse speed. You have a traverse speed of 53.7. Now that's obviously with the improved rotation mechanism, but that is amazing if you think about it. Your tank is fast, your tank turns very quickly, your tank accelerates quickly. You know, those are the things that like tank drivers, medium tank drivers just love to hear. It's a tank that is snappy, it's a tank that is fast, it's mobile, it gets you from point A to B very, very quickly and reliably. So moving on to concealment as well, as you can see, I've upgraded my crew a little bit, so I wouldn't say it's cheating, but Brothers in Arms and Camo is a must if you're playing a medium tank, as well as Sixth Sense. So that's what I have. You can see the concealment on the vehicle is not too bad. I'm not using any kind of premium consumables, and I'm not using any equipment that would buff that too much, except for ventilations. And you can see this tank can stay hidden a little bit as long as you know how to play with bushes. Now, the spotting part is really important. I really prefer to have the ability to spot for my team as well. So that's the reason why I went with view range and with an equipment piece of coated optics class 2. Now I have 462 meters base view range with all the stats that I have right now, or view range. The base view range on this vehicle is 380 meters, which is for a tier 7 okay. It's not the best, but I'd say it's in an okay area. So as I mentioned prior, just like the VK3002M, I would certainly also, you know, use something to improve your coated optics a bit more. Because if we take a look at the field modifications real fast, we're going to jump in there. I went with module durability increase because I don't really care too much about the hull and the controverse, because it's that great that even if you have an additional 4 or 5 points, it's not going to change anything drastically. It's already that high up. Improved sights to decrease the aim circle, and then anti-reflective headlight coating, because I want to have the best concealment, and I will sacrifice those 2 kilometers per hour in reverse. That's fine by me. Now moving on to the equipment. Now for the equipment, I would have loved to see vertical stabilizer, but I forgot that I think tier 7, 6, everything below tier 8 doesn't get vertical stabilizer, so, and tank destroyers don't have it at tier 9, 8, and 10, so you don't have that. I went with the best next best thing, yeah, that's the right way. Improved ventilations class 2, and I went with coated optics because generally speaking you don't need a gun rammer, the DPM is quite nice, you don't need improved aiming because your accuracy is decent enough. 0.34, you could get it down to 0.32, but I think 0.34 is completely fine by me. The aim speed and hence gun lane drive, in my opinion, is okay. I don't need to have that. And then what you could do is you could get the additional Grouses class 2, which will give you plus 15% on maintaining top speed, or maintaining speed when moving across terrain. That is something that could be quite effective, but because I had improved rotation mechanism lying around, I just put it on. But probably if I had the choice, turbocharger, additional Grousers, that would be one of the things that I put in that place. Or if you feel really adventurous, you could also go for low noise exhaust, and you could completely skip any kind of additional mobility perks and just go with that, so that you have better concealment if you're really worried about that and you think that's too low. Generally speaking though, this tank has a lot of nice sides, but it has some major downsides, which are just the pen. The pen is a major downside, and the need to really use premium ammunition. If you're at tier 8, tier 9, you will need to use APCR shells, and these APCR shells are quite expensive, 3,200 credits, that's quite heavy, and at the same time they're not even that good. 194 millimeters of penetration, that's the same as the 75 millimeter gun with its APCR shell, so generally speaking that's not that great. But you know, how does this tank do in combat? So I have two gameplays lined up for you guys, one at tier 7, one at tier 8, and both of them are actually quite nice, and they show off different parts of the vehicle. But I think they show off that this tank actually, even though it's an old school vehicle without the best kind of pen, still is really fun to play. And I think that's the most important part when you get a vehicle. You want to have it as a tank that is fun, that is kind of unique in its own way, and I think this one certainly fits the category. So let's jump on over and see the gameplay. Okay, so first we're gonna start with a tier 8 match, and you can see it's a match where there are about 5 tier 8 vehicles and the rest are tier 7. So these are games that you'll find yourself in a couple of times, but it can get worse, and that means you'll have to go up against tier 9 vehicles. Now, I know my reviews are a bit long, so I hope that I don't make it too long this time, but I really want to show off both gameplays because they show off the real vehicle very nicely, because I think this is a great tank and a tank that I enjoy a lot, even though it hasn't really been buffed, it hasn't been touched except for the HD model it received a couple of years ago. It doesn't really have, you know, any real crazy features except for its real great mobility and the kind of trolley hull armor when you're fighting against other tier 7 vehicles. The 88mm gun, which is also on the Tiger 1, doesn't really have the potential, doesn't have the penetration to be a weapon that will give you like the most options, but that means you'll have to be a lot more innovative, or not innovative, like you need to be a lot more flexible, because you need to know when to really engage the tanks and when not to engage, because the 145mm is going to really set you back. You're not going to be able to do a lot of damage with it against tier 8 opponents, and you just need to know where to be. So this is a tank that really relies on either targeting only really lightly armored vehicles, or you start playing it as a real light or medium tank and you are only flanking with this vehicle. So that means being in front of somebody is going to be not very good. It's not going to be a good choice, and to get spotted by someone is going to be even worse choice, especially at tier 8. So you have to know the weaknesses of this vehicle, and that is certainly the penetration. You can see I fired at the Super Hellcat. I loaded a PCR shell, like 2. I have fired 2 of them already, because I wanted to pen the Skoda in case he comes around the corner, but I fired it at the Super Hellcat. And you can see even the APCR shell isn't that good, 194mm of penetration, and we just bounced the Super Hellcat with the first shot. Now, this Skoda T56, this is a situation where we can't do anything against him. He's right in front of us. We don't have APCR shells loaded. You guys know me. I don't like to fire excessive amounts of APCR shells. But in this gameplay, you will actually see that having to rely on APCR is unfortunately the norm when you're playing this tank at tier 8. So I have a high explosive shell loaded because I thought I might just be able to finish off the Hellcat, and now you can see that it's a very uncomfortable situation that we find ourselves in. We have this TVP VTU right next to us. This is a tier 8 Czechoslovakian medium tank. He does have enough pen, but we do not, and now we are falling back. Because of the mobility that we have, you can see we are actually getting all the way to 60 kilometers per hour top speed. The rotation is great. Being able to turn the tank really quickly is awesome. And there we have a very nice spot where we actually can use this bush to our advantage and fire through it without getting spotted. So we do a bit of damage to the Progetto 46. But the real feature right here is actually not the damage that we are trying to deal. It's actually that we are trying to keep these guys lit up so that our SU-130PM can actually support us in this situation, because the SU-130PM is the only tank that is capable of dealing some severe damage to the Skoda T56 and also to the KV3, because we do not have the pen to really take on the Skoda T56 if he's in a hold down position. But as soon as he goes down here, as you can see right here, we are able to actually pen his lower plate. And because I was thinking that this double bush was going to protect me, I mistook it and I fired at the Skoda T56 because I was afraid that he was going to be seeing me either way. Now, unfortunately, as I mentioned, the hull armor of the VK3002D is a bit trollish. It has a very nice angle at the front, so bouncing that is actually not too rare. That's something that will happen quite often when you're playing this tank. And right now it's a one-on-one versus 2 VKs, and basically we're both firing APCR ammunition to be able to go through the turret reliably, because having 145 millimeters is sometimes it's gonna work, but a lot of times it's gonna be a bit tricky. And if it's in this one-on-one situation, you really want to have the pen to be able to deal with it. Thankfully for us, the SC-130 PM is watching our back. He just puts one very big shell into the VK, or it was the T103, and there the SC-130 PM takes out the Skoda T56. So in this scenario right now, we've dealt 2,000 damage and we've assisted about 755. And there's the SC-130 PM that is hiding right behind the rock. And yeah, unfortunately, sometimes the 0.34 accuracy is gonna let you down, and you can see that there must be something in the way, because I hit that spot like twice now and it would have been a pen, but unfortunately, because I don't use the other outline thing, I don't see that there's a little rock there. It doesn't really matter to me, it's okay. I'm not too upset, and in the end we move up. The KV3 kills me, and I think some of you guys will probably think, why did you move up? If you wouldn't have moved up, you wouldn't have died. But in my personal opinion, it's like, if you really want to do damage, if you want to be active, you take risks, and if you take risks, sometimes you do fail, but that's fine, because only if you take risks, you're going to be able to achieve anything in this game, and you're gonna be able to do a lot of damage and mark your tanks. That's why it's important that you have to kind of assess when to take a risk and when not to, because at this stage of the game, it was already over. I was able to take a risk. Unfortunately, it didn't pay out. KV3 still managed to take us out, but he died, and we managed to get like at least 3,000 damage combined. So let's move on to the other game, to the tier 7 game, and there we can actually see what this tank is capable of against tier 7 opponents, and that the 88mm gun is actually not too bad if you're able to pen your targets. So we're not even in a tier 7 match only, but we're actually also in a tier 6 match, and we're top tier. There are 2 artillery pieces, and we're playing on Mannerheim line, and this is a map that I really like to go up north and put some early pressure on the enemy team. That's what I really like to do, and especially with the tank that has this kind of mobility, it's very easy to do so if you would actually start playing the game as soon as you load in, and not just stare at your phone because you just received a message. But either way, forget about that part. We're gonna move up the north. We have the mobility to chase the T-34-85M and be there in no time. So yeah, you probably have picked up, I like this tank. I like the mobility aspect of this vehicle, and I think that the mobility is the greatest strength of this tank. But you can actually see that the mobility coupled with a gun that is able to do damage is a very nice thing. And it's a very nice thing indeed if you don't have to rely too much on premium ammunition. So right there, there's a easy 8 over there, and we have some very nice shots on him. We track him, we do about 450 damage to him, and there's the next target already, a T-34-85, and he foolishly just stopped in the middle just like me, but unfortunately for him, he will not survive that encounter, and I survived it without taking any kind of damage right there, because I don't think they had any tanks lining up in the back able to shoot us in that little passageway. What you can see right here is that our T-34-85 is really aggressive, and he just ran into a hornet's nest, and we actually hit the Scorpion and we set him on fire. Keep the Scorpion in mind. That Scorpion is still burning. He's going to be the final adversary in the match, and he was not very happy with some things. He obviously is firing heat shells, because if you're playing a Scorpion, you will be firing heat shells, and especially when somebody lights you on fire, it's not going to be a lot of fun. So far we've already dealt 1,249 damage, only after about I'm not really sure. Is it 2 minutes played? No, it's about 2 minutes, 3 minutes played in a couple of seconds. Either way, right now we have a Scorpion over here, but the Scorpion doesn't look too healthy. We're trying to hold this corner, and we see that there's a T-37 coming in. I blind shot because he disappears in the wood, but actually managed to hit him. And now it's all about us holding the north, because the Scorpion has moved into a position that he could not survive without any kind of armor, and I know that I cannot survive this corner all by myself. I need some support. So the best way to get some support is to go closer to our cap, to our base, and hope that some of the TDs might turn around, because this match right now is pretty much going to be decided on the north. If they push through the north right now as a unit, I would not be able to do a lot of damage to them. But still, keep in mind, I have like 5.3 second reload time for 220 damage. And if I manage to pen them, it's going to hurt them. And I still have a lot of armor and a lot of HP. So that means that they really need to dig me out of this position. So there's a P-43 Tear, the Tier 7 Italian medium tank. Really cool vehicle, by the way. He moves up. I unfortunately only managed to pen him once. But you can see my track eats up one shot. And now I'm just trying to put some more pressure on these guys. And I actually do manage to hit that guy in that snapshot, but it was only a track shot. So right now I'm trying to take on this AMX 1375, while at the same time also trying to light whatever is coming down south. You can see when you have the reload time and you have a little bit of armor and the angling on the armor, you can really hold nice positions, and you can basically just force the enemy to come towards you. So that's all I'm doing. I'm not trying to move into their direction. I'm trying to use this bush to keep them lit up at the same time, and I'm just trying to get the pop shots in. Now, obviously, sometimes I'm quite lucky. This T-34-100 doesn't hit me, but in the end, I think that the positioning is a lot more important than the luck part in the end. So unfortunately, we don't hit the AMX 3075. But the Achilles does knock him out after the second shot. And now we're at 2,337 HP or damage dealt. And we still have 747 HP. And at the same time, our team is pushing in from the south into the north, into their cap. And they have completely stalled down in this advance on trying to get to our base. Now the Achilles over here, he is supporting me, and I'm just trying to hold the rest off. We still know that there's a P-43 Tear here. We know that there's a T-34-100, and there might be a Scorpion coming in somewhere, or he might be sitting at the back. Who knows? So I'm just waiting for the Aufklärungspanther to make a move on the T-34-100. This player has been doing some serious work, right, as you can see. 3 kills, and he has lit up the entire enemy team. And right there, we get a nice shot on the T-34-100. Once more, we get a snapshot in. We keep the vehicle tracked. He's unable to pen us once more because the armor and the angling is really awkward on this vehicle. As you can see, it's really, really nicely sloped. And there we go. We have the Achilles, who is now in deep trouble, who is trying to survive the P-43 Tear. And this is the thing that you have all been waiting for, the ramming capability on this tank. So we ram him for 194 damage, and he rams us, or he does about 166 damage to us. So yeah, the ramming is no longer really an option in this tank, at least against equal tier opponents, like equal vehicles, medium tanks for example, because yeah, the tank doesn't weigh enough anymore. So yeah, ramming only against light tanks and artillery pieces, or tanks that you know you can survive, or where you really want to get the kill, because you do have the speed, but you do not have the weight anymore. And if you really want to ram kill someone, go down the E50 line. You're going to be having a lot of fun in that. So now we're just going to clean up the final stage of the game, where we're waiting for the Scorpion to pop up. We're trying to get behind them. There's a Hellcat, there's a Poodle that was just knocked out, and they still have 2 artillery pieces that are in the back. Funny thing, yes, I'm going to be playing artillery for only, like, for a week only. Except for some of the tanks that I have to review, like the Leopard line. Other than that, I'm mainly going to be playing artillery just to kind of get a feel of artillery and to once and for all understand what is the appeal of playing artillery, and if I'm maybe wrong, that maybe artillery is fun and I've just always had like the wrong idea. Oh, by the way, have you forgotten about the Scorpion? There he is. That's a very common place to hide yourself when you're at the late stage of the game, especially for a Scorpion that has really good camo values. That's a place that I would have hidden myself. He just had really bad luck that I knew that that was one of the main places. Unfortunately for me, I didn't wait and to take another shot at the Super Hellcat or the Hellcat, and I almost died. I only had 1 more HP remaining, but still in the end we managed to do 3,964 damage and get an additional 431 assistance damage. And at the same time, we hit 1 shot on the T-37, and we hit the Scorpion when he was hidden, so that's another 500 damage, I think, in total, or 460 if I recall correctly. So in the end, yeah, it was almost a 5k game, or I think it was a 5k damage game. Now obviously a lot of that comes down to the way you play the game, the way you play the tank, and that I was a bit lucky. I managed to completely use up all of my HP, except for 1 HP. But I think that this tank really is great. This is a great tank at tier 7. At tier 6, this is such a fun tank. Even at tier 8, it's not one of the worst vehicles. It doesn't have to pen, yes, and that kind of, you know, ruins your game a little bit because you're unable to penetrate like heavy tanks from the front, especially at tier 8. It's gonna look really awkward. But once you play it as a real medium tank, as a vehicle that is only there to support, to flank, and to use, like, even use some premium ammunition if you have to, I think this tank is great. Like, with this rate of fire, you can just perma-track whatever's in front of you. Like, for example, you're playing against tier 8. Maybe you cannot penetrate him, but how about you just knock his tracks out for, like, the next 2 minutes? If you're kind of in a position where he cannot shoot you, you can knock out his tracks all day long. It's gonna be just as annoying, I can promise you that. And generally speaking, I just think that this is a tank that is massive fun to play. It's fast, you know, it has some kind of trollish armor at the front, it has an 88mm gun that doesn't really work, but somehow it does work if you know, pay some attention to it. And I think it just really it gives so much power to the players that really want to be invested with a vehicle and get, you know, have some time invested into the tank and think about what they want to do and think outside of the box, because that's what you can do with this tank. In the end, very good game, I have to say myself. A lot of damage dealt, really cool vehicle, and I really suggest you guys to try it out, at least try it out. And if you don't like it, obviously you can still move on to the Indian, because the Indian is going to be a different story altogether. But I think this vehicle at tier 7 is one that is often overlooked, and I think without any real reason. So hopefully you guys did enjoy this review. As always, comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Until then, have a good one. Peace out.